In this video, we'll be talking about Stratmore's Epar EM. This is a two-part, slump-resistant epoxy mortar putty specially formulated to allow hand mixing. It adheres strongly to dry or slightly damp concrete and also to many metals. It is used to repair concrete or to join or assemble concrete parts together. It can also be used for the grouting of starter bars or bolts, especially when these are to be placed horizontally or overhead. It may even be used underwater. Its strength is much greater than concrete. It may even be used in situations where there is potable water. Ensure the surfaces are free of any dust, oil, grease or loose material. Remove oil and grease with a degreaser or wire brush the surface back to sound material. Thoroughly clean the surface with water after degreasing or brushing. Remove latence, which is the weak layer that can occur after concrete has cured, and efflorescence, which is the white powdery crystalline deposit seen on damp concrete, by acid etching or wire brushing. Ensure any acid is thoroughly rinsed away and allow the concrete to thoroughly dry. Steel surfaces are best prepared by sandblasting or grinding. All surfaces need to be as dry as possible, but some dampness can be tolerated. You'll need the following equipment: gloves, rubber ones. Avoid gloves with a textured surface. A spatula with a broad blade, if a broad blade is required. Degreaser, hard bristle and wire brushes or acid for cleaning the surface of the concrete. A sandblaster or grinder for metal surfaces. Eye goggles. A container of water for wetting gloves. Always wear gloves when mixing. Avoid breathing vapors. You can mix and apply the epoxy with just natural ventilation. Measure out equal quantities of resin and hardener to give the required quantity. Make a mix of approximately the size of a softball. Anything larger may be harder to manage by hand. Don't change the mix ratio. Adding more hardener will not make it cure faster, and it will compromise the curing process and result in reduced strength. Dip your gloves into water and shake off the excess. Begin kneading the two components together. We recommend rolling out the combined components into a long sausage using a suitable surface and then fold that sausage back onto itself. Continue to fold and refold the sausage. At some point, the mixture will start to become sticky. Before it becomes too sticky, place it onto a non-sticky surface. Wet your gloves again with a small amount of water. Shake off the excess water and rub your hands together to mix any epoxy on the gloves into a paste. This will assist to prevent further stickiness occurring. Continue mixing as before until you get a uniform grey colour with no marbling or areas of black and white. Do not add additional water to the epoxy, as this will weaken it and prevent good curing and achievement of the desired final strength. To mix larger quantities, it is easier to mix on a suitable mixing board or surface using a strong steel spatula. Using two spatulas will help speed up the process. Mix the hardener and resin together by pushing and cutting the hardener and resin together, then working the mixed material using the spatula using a pushing and smearing action. Have some water handy in case the spatulas get sticky. Again, ensure the epoxy is well mixed until you get a uniform grey colour with no marbling or areas of black and white. Epar EM is also available in 5-minute and 15-minute pot life versions. These are very fast curing, and realistically only small amounts can be mixed and applied within these time frames. Pay careful attention to mixing properly and not to continue working the mixed epoxy after the pot life is over. The mix will also develop more heat while curing. Using your gloved thumb, smear a small amount of the mixed epoxy onto the surfaces to be bonded, pushing the epoxy thoroughly into the surface to fill the pores. Continue to apply the epoxy until the desired thickness is achieved. If bonding two surfaces together, push them together with a rubbing or circular twisting motion to enable the two epoxy surfaces to meld together. This will also ensure that any excess epoxy is squeezed out. You can then smooth off the epoxy with a damp trowel or damp, gloved fingers to obtain a smooth surface. The mixed epoxy can also be placed underwater, but it does require special care. It's important to mix the epoxy above water as described previously. Then carefully smear the surfaces to be bonded with the mixed epoxy, working it into the surface. Avoid the incorporation of water as much as possible when building up the layers and during final assembly. Also avoid agitating the water during placing, assembly, and until final cure. Only the standard cure version is approved for use with potable water. If using for potable water, allow the full 7-day cure and then wash the entire surface with clean water and discard the water. Prevent the joined surfaces from moving until the epoxy is cured. With a standard hardener, this will take several hours depending on the thickness of the epoxy and the temperature. It is best to leave the joined surfaces overnight, but final strength will not be achieved until about 7 days have lapsed. Standard hardener will enable the epoxy to be worked for about 60 to 90 minutes, again depending on temperature and amount mixed. Once the pot life is over, as evidenced by a thickening of the mixture and difficulty in working it, do not continue to work or use it as the final strength will be reduced. Wash hands and all equipment with soap and water before curing is advanced. Once cured, the epoxy can only be removed by mechanical means or by chipping away at it.